Who here loves jewelry? Anyone ever stood in line for the new iPhone? I want you to imagine for a moment a piece of gold in your hand, a coin, a bracelet, a watch, something that for centuries has symbolized wealth, love, and power. But I also want you to imagine for a moment its journey from deep within the earth, dug out, crossing through borders, passing through multiple hands, and then finally into yours. But behind that shimmer, there's often a much darker reality, a journey that starts in a war zone or in the hands of someone forced to dig for survival. You see, that watch or smartphone or computer, it holds more than just value. It holds the history of human lives. And who are these human lives? Typically, it's artisanal mining villages where people forced into difficult, backbreaking labor are the starting point of a supply chain that spans the globe. Where young girls are forced to walk long distances to bring water to their family, a daily task that prevents them from going to school, robbing them of an opportunity outside of the village. Popular culture praises us on social media for what we have and how much we have. But whoever asks, how did we get this? Where did it come from? And how can we ensure that the products that we consume don't come at the cost of human suffering? In 2012, on one of these TED stages, Bandy Movie, a Congolese refugee, spoke to a crowd similar to you, warning them of the dangers of the coltan and tantalum trade in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And how much has really changed? A report on October 6, 2024, the Wall Street Journal sheds light on the illicit smuggling of coltan, a mineral that's critical to the manufacture of everyday electronics like smartphones and electric cars. The reality is that most of the minerals that cross your borders today are still tainted with the stains of conflict and exploitation. Smuggle across borders, you see, and then enter into an international marketplace that makes it difficult to combat financial crimes like money laundering and terrorism finance. And despite international regulations like Dodd-Frank and traceability initiatives like TEDxSTU, designed to prevent conflict minerals from entering our marketplace, militia groups in the Democratic Republic of Congo continue to profit off of conflict minerals, using the proceeds to fund child labor, human exploitation, and rape. You see, these standards, they fail us where it matters most, on the ground, at the source. Coltan is smuggled across borders, mislabeled as conflict-free, and then it enters an international supply chain that includes those of major tech companies. You see, these are the stories that often go overlooked or we're just willfully blind to. But instead of just highlighting the problems, my research sought to find solutions, real, actionable solutions. And one of the solutions my research found was rooted in real-world change, and it started with one simple principle: empower the source. We can't just put regulations in place and hope that they work. We have to put supply chain actors on the ground, working with the people in the villages, offering education, technology, mechanization, giving them equipment. By helping these communities transition into semi-industrial mining operators, we create sustainable systems that increase production, increased revenue, increased sustainability, decreased child labor, and increases profitability for those stuck at the bottom of the supply chain. And how do we trace and track these minerals that we're talking about today? Well, traceability bagging systems and blockchain technology. And no, not just for the cryptocurrencies like you all know about. No, the ability to log each and every movement along the supply chain, creating a permanent, immutable record of each gram all the way back to its source. We can use these modern, unique technologies on mining, one of humanity's oldest practices, paving the way for a more ethical and sustainable future. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, Chad, this all sounds great. These are all good ideas, but what do you have to do with it? What are you doing about it? This guy just standing on the stage in his fancy suits just talking about the problem. And I get it, and I understand, and it makes sense. But it reminds me of Les Brown, the motivational speaker. I'm sure you guys are aware of him. He's very popular on YouTube. He would do these incredibly large speeches in front of tens of thousands of people, and he would ask the crowd, where have you been? Where are you now? And where are you going? Well, here's where I've been. A bunch of years back, after a few unfortunate experiences in Africa, I felt that the global marketplace was moving towards traceability and sustainability. And before I ever wrote my doctoral dissertation on the subject or got certified in anti-money laundering or global sanctions, I had this idea to help and assist these villages in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, add confidence to what was really a broken sector. So, in coordination with the US-funded initiative, I went to the United Arab Emirates to construct a solution. And as I'm sitting there writing these manuals and building this upstream and downstream supply chain management system that's in compliance with OECD and Dodd-Frank and ICGLR, I thought to myself, this is never going to be complete unless it also adds components from local DRC law and national law. So we added concepts from various craft reports and local mining decrees. And then I'm thinking, well, how are we going to communicate these standards to these remote villages? So we created questionnaires and we digitized them. And lo and behold, these communities wanted to opt into these systems. They wanted to build these clean supply chains and work with it. So they started exchanging data back and forth. And I'm thinking, we're going to have to do on-site inspections. So maybe we should combine traceability bagging systems with blockchain technology to create this permanent immutable record of the journey of each gram from mine site to marketplace. So we started doing that, and it just kept evolving. So around this time, I wanted to really understand deeply these villages in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. So I went there and I traveled, and I spent the last few years in Africa, in the jungles, traveling from village to village, holding town halls to understand community wants and needs. I assisted the federal government to institute the first ever artisanal mining publication system to make sites eligible for clean and traceable exports. I went to the sites, I performed on-site inspections, I used traceability bags, I transported the product, I melted the product, I made bars. I instituted and created an international, national, and local risk assessment of all supply chain actors, the first of its kind, procured the export documents, and then successfully imported the product into Dubai, whereby it was securely transported, traced, tracked, tested, and then ultimately sold to an LBMA refinery, thus closing the loop on what we're told was the first ever clean and traceable artisanal gold export in the history of Congo. You see, by going to the ground and working at the source, it was possible. Possible, ladies and gentlemen, to create this vertically integrated, nationally licensed structure that could serve as both importer and exporter of record, but also create a permanent and immutable record of the longitude and latitude of each gram of product back to its source. What was thought by most in the world to be impossible all of a sudden became possible, which leads me to you. Because if you're listening to this, don't ever let anyone tell you that something's not possible. It's just hard. It requires grit, determination, steadfastness. But as in all things in life, it's possible. As to the question of where we're going, it doesn't just stop there, because I envision something much larger, an African Federation of Artisanal Miners, similar to the National Federation of Coffee Growers in Colombia. In the first quarter of the 20th century, the coffee industry in Colombia faced similar challenges. The smaller growers had done more for the industry than any other group, and violence erupted between them and larger growers. But through the spearheading of Epifanio Montoya Uribe, a tenacious and visionary coffee grower, came advocacy, organization, research, whereby in time, the Federation was able to increase the livelihoods of coffee growers everywhere, boost national exports, and protect the industry. Did you know that 7% of all sales from Juan Valdez coffee shops goes back to the Federation Fund in the form of support for these communities? Why can't we do the same for artisanal mining communities in Africa? In forming this federation, we could offer best practices, offer equipment, work side by side with them, helping them formalize, turning them from a vulnerable group into one of the most powerful groups in the world, something that they never had before. I admit, this vision is immense, but as in all things great, the immensity of the vision is only dwarfed by its potential impact. For mining communities, it means more than just money. It means dignity, respect, and future. It means children going to school instead of fetching water or working in dangerous mines. It means women participating in local economies in ways that empower them. It means entire regions able to lift themselves out of poverty because their work is finally valued on a global scale. But I also think it's important to keep in mind and be mindful of the economic lessons in all of this. Workers spending money and buying things is the linchpin to all great economies. It's their output, your output, and means of production that creates the value that global firms sell back to the public. For industries like technology and jewelry, it means better relationships with your consumers, better reputation, more trust. Imagine creating a clean gold jewelry line, or how about this one? Socially responsible smartphones. Products made with components that are not only ethically sourced and traceable, but come from communities that are thriving. That's not just great business, that's the future of business. And diplomatically, of course, it means stronger ties between exporting nations and their trade partners. But it also means respect, stability, and the potential for economic partnerships with the rest of the world. Africa no longer seen as this source of violence or conflict minerals, but as a key player in ethical trade and sustainability. As to Les Brown's final question, where are we now? I prefer to leave it this way. The next time you look down at your watch, or you look down at your smartphone, think about its journey. Think about the hands that it passed through before it got to yours. What if that journey could be one of transformation instead of exploitation? What if the products we consume could be the key to lifting someone out of poverty, protecting a child, or stabilizing a region, rewriting the story of mineral trade? These minerals we use, these products we consume, they all have their own story, their own unique history, and we all play a role in that history. But through empowerment, formalization, and ethical sourcing, we can ensure that the gold of the future doesn't just represent value, it represents values. And then, ladies and gentlemen, then, together we can change the world.